I am not joking when I say I could vote for Joe Biden. Let me explain. Let's do a little history. Now, you may be too young to remember this, so you need to know this. And if you do remember this, it probably is going to shock you because you've forgotten this. But when Bill Clinton and Al Gore were elected president, vice president in 1992-93, one of the very first things they did was announce this initiative to reinvent government. Clinton put Al Gore in charge of it, and it happened through the 2 terms of Clinton's presidency, and some actually good things happened. They talked about cutting government costs, cutting regulation, opening up markets, which means capitalism, making it possible for all of us to make more money, and in return, the government would make more money. They talked about the problem of entitlements, mainly Social Security and Medicare. They were going to run out of money someday. And so they at least dealt with it. Now, they didn't solve that problem at all, but I give them credit for at least bringing it up. They talked about balancing the federal government's budget. Can you imagine that? And by the way, from 1974, the only time that we've had a balanced budget in the federal government was 1998 through 2001. And they'll gladly take credit for that, and I will give them some because at least they worked on that. But the reality is, the economy exploded during the 90s because of technology. I was a part of that. My business exploded. I just remind you, you had Microsoft and Apple. It was the maturing of the internet, cell phones. Good grief. You couldn't help but grow. Great time of wealth creation, productivity enhancement. Everybody did well. So, including the government. But I have to give them credit for what they did. Now, here's the point. Here's how I could vote for Joe Biden. You see, he was a senator during all of that time. He was right there with Clinton and Gore, supporting everything they did, including welfare reform, that crime reform, and all this other stuff. And it was all about this whole reinvention of government was about making, instead of coming after more of our money and power, let's take what we have and try to do better. Try to make government more efficient. Can you imagine? So for that, I give them all the credit in the world. So if Biden wants my vote, all he has to do is say, you know what? I was there during that time. I believe in what we did as Democrats then. And this is where I am going to land in 2020. I will be the president. Because guess what? That reinventing the government was like 25 years ago. It needs to happen again. And that's what my campaign's going to stand on. I will be the next president to reinvent the government. We're going to balance the budget. We're going to work on entitlements, which is never even mentioned again. Can you imagine? Guess what? He would get my vote. But that's not going to happen. He announced this week that he's going to be the most progressive president ever. Wow. Goodbye, money.